Starlink works in Ukraine's trenches, on remote Pacific islands, and across the Philippines. It does not work in Taiwan, the one place on Earth most likely to need it. China did not block it. No deal was ever signed. No talks have happened since 2022, and the man who owns the network builds half of his cars in Shanghai. SpaceX's public position is on the record. Taiwan has issued no license, and Taiwan's ownership law is the reason. That sentence hides a 5-year standoff, a factory, a corrected biography, and a Pentagon program Taiwan was never invited into. The belief doing the damage is simple. If the shooting starts, the satellites switch on, the way they did for Ukraine. Ukraine is the exception, not the template. Kiev had terminals moving within days of the invasion because access already existed, activated within roughly 12 hours of a public request. Access is the precondition. Taiwan has none, not degraded access. None. No agreement, no terminals, no legal pathway, and no contact between the two sides since September 2022. What stands between 23 million people and the only constellation large enough to matter in wartime is not Beijing and not bandwidth. It is a standoff between one sovereignty law and one private owner. Start with the question every defense planner in Taipei has already answered. What happens to an island's internet when the sea around it closes? More than 90% of Taiwan's internet travels through undersea cables. 14 physical lines on the seabed carry the digital life of the world's chip heartland. You already know how this ends in theory. In February 2023, it ended in practice. Boats flying Chinese flags severed both cables to the Matsu Islands, and 14,000 residents lost normal internet for more than 50 days. 50 days, in peacetime, with repair ships free to sail, with no shots fired, with the full cooperation of the ocean. Now remove the repair ships. A blockade does not need to cut all 14 cables. It only needs to make repair impossible, because a cable that cannot be fixed and a cable that was never laid are the same cable, which leaves one layer, orbit. And here is the part the Ukraine template quietly assumed, that Taiwan's orbital layer exists. Satellites cannot replace cable throughput. That question is settled, and it is not the question here. The question is not how much the sky can carry. It is whether Taiwan is allowed into the sky at all. The answer as of July 17, 2026. No concluded Starlink or Starshield agreement covering Taiwan exists. Not a partial one. Not a pilot. Nothing. So the picture to bury is this one. Cables as the main line. Satellites as the safety net. The net was never installed. What Taiwan has beneath the high wire is the floor. You are thinking, fine, Starlink says no, use another network. Here is the problem. There is no other network. And the next few minutes explain why nobody can build one in time. 10,400. That is the number of active Starlink satellites in orbit. Roughly 69% of every working satellite circling the planet. Sit with what that percentage means. It does not describe a market leader. It describes the market. The engine is launch cadence. SpaceX flew 165 Falcon 9 missions in 2025. By July 1st of this year, it had already placed 1,613 new Starlink satellites in orbit in 2026 alone. That 2026 figure, by itself, is 2.5 times the entire fleet of the nearest competitor. Count the competition. OneWeb. Roughly 630 satellites, a first-generation fleet aging toward the end of its design life around 2027 to 2028. Amazon's Kuiper, roughly 300. China's planned constellations exist mostly on paper and launch schedules, not in orbit at scale. The scale gap is structural, not marginal. Rockets are the bottleneck. One company owns the rocket cadence, and every year the gap compounds. At wartime scale, satellite internet is not an industry. It is a person with a launch monopoly. So retire the idea that someone else will cover Taiwan. There is no someone else. There is one landlord in low orbit, and every tenant on Earth negotiates with him or goes without. Now that the sky has one landlord, the standoff from the opening becomes the only story that matters. Why is the landlord not renting to Taiwan? The reflex answer arrives instantly. China must be blocking it. Beijing has not needed to lift a finger. The block is written in Taipei, in Taiwan's own Telecommunications Management Act, Article 36. The law caps foreign ownership of a telecom operator at 49% directly, 60% combined, and requires the chair to be a Taiwanese national. SpaceX enters every market on one structure. A wholly owned subsidiary, 100% control. Two absolutes met in 2021. 2021, when talks with Taiwan's National Communications Commission broke down over exactly this. Since then, silence. SpaceX officials and Taiwanese government officials have had no talks since September 2022. Nearly 4 years of dead air over an island whose invasion scenarios are wargamed annually in 3 capitals. SpaceX's stated commercial reason, per testimony to Taiwan's Ministry of Digital Affairs, is that Taiwan's saturated 4G and 5G market makes entry unattractive. That is the company's account through one channel, the ministry's record, and it deserves exactly that much weight, no more. Movement finally came this month. On July 13, 2026, an amendment removing the nationality requirement and setting a flat 60% foreign cap passed its first committee review in the Legislative Yuan. First review, no third reading, no cross-party agreement, no signal from SpaceX that 60% is any more acceptable than 49. The door is now ajar. Nobody has walked through it. The belief to hand over at this exit is the comfortable one, the one where an adversary did this to Taiwan. Nobody did this to Taiwan. A sovereignty law and an ownership doctrine did it to each other, and Beijing got the outcome for free. Which leaves the obvious question. The stakes are existential, so why doesn't Taiwan just sign on SpaceX's terms like everyone else? The answer is a factory in Shanghai. The operational reality is that Taiwan is being asked to place its wartime communications under the total control of a man whose financial center of gravity sits inside the adversary. Tesla's gigafactory Shanghai has accounted for roughly 51% of Tesla's global production, a share that held stable across more than 7 consecutive quarters. The revenue side is filed with the SEC. China delivered $21.75 billion of Tesla revenue in 2023, about 22% of the company, and $20.94 billion in 2024, more than a fifth of Tesla 2 years running, from the country Taiwan would be at war with. Then there is what the owner has said. On October 7, 2022, Elon Musk told the Financial Times the conflict should be resolved with a special administrative zone for Taiwan, one he suggested could be more lenient than Hong Kong. Beijing's ambassador publicly welcomed the proposal. Taiwan's entire political spectrum rejected it, and Taiwan's defense minister announced the military would buy no more Teslas. Now the sentence this section is required to carry, plainly. No document proves his China business drives his Taiwan decisions. What is documented is the exposure, the statement, and Beijing's applause. Taiwan is not required to bet its wartime communications on the difference. If this is the kind of analysis you want more of, subscribing is how you keep getting it. If you think one man's judgment deciding a war is a hypothetical, it isn't. It already happened once, and both sides of the story agree on how it ended. Everyone in this debate, on every side, agrees on one thing. In September 2023, a story broke that a CEO's decision had shaped a naval operation. What that agreement hides is that the story itself had to be corrected, and the correction matters as much as the claim. The claim, as Walter Isaacson's biography first stated it, Musk covertly ordered engineers to disable Starlink coverage within 100 kilometers of Crimea to stop a Ukrainian drone attack on Russian warships. The counterclaim from the author himself. On September 9, 2023, Isaacson publicly corrected the account. Coverage had never been enabled that far. Ukraine requested an emergency activation reaching Sevastopol, and Musk declined, saying activation would risk major escalation. Simon & Schuster edited future editions. Reuters, the BBC, and Politico all reported the correction, and the uncontested ending is the only load-bearing fact here. A sovereign military asked to use the network for an operation. The owner said no, the operation could not use it. Every party, Isaacson, Musk, Kiev's own statements, agrees on that outcome. Only the framing and the timeline are in dispute. Washington read that outcome the same way and answered with money. From September 2023, the Pentagon began contracting Starshield, SpaceX's government line, an initial ceiling of $70 million, precisely to convert owner discretion into contractual obligation. By December 2024, 3,000 Starshield-enabled terminals were committed for Ukraine, and the US is building a dedicated government-owned constellation targeting 2029, so that the next Sevastopol request goes to a general, not a founder. Read what that program is. It is the United States government concluding, in procurement language, that commercial Starlink access cannot be guaranteed in war, and Taiwan is not a party to any of it. No Starshield arrangement covers the island. The belief to leave behind here is the think tank framing. framing, the idea that owner risk is a seminar hypothetical. It has a precedent both sides confirm in outcome and a multi-billion-dollar Pentagon receipt. The hypothetical phase ended in 2023, so strip away every assumption. If the cables go tonight, what does Taiwan actually hold? The honest number is smaller than you think, and it lives on foreign soil. Taiwan must have a serious backup by now. Here is the backup. Counted honestly, every item on the record. Deployed. One deal. Changhua Telecom holds an exclusive arrangement with OneWeb, licensed in June 2025, targeting 700 domestic hotspots. Now trace the signal. Every OneWeb transmission reaching Taiwan lands through ground gateways in Japan, in Thailand, and in Guam. Zero domestic gateways. Taiwan's only working satellite backup physically depends on foreign soil staying accessible during the exact scenario, a blockade, that the backup exists for. A backup that routes through 3 other countries in wartime is not a fallback. It is a dependency wearing a fallback's uniform, and it is aging. OneWeb's first-generation fleet of about 630 satellites reaches the end of its design life around 2027 to 2028. Sovereign. Taiwan's space agency, TASA, runs the B5G program, first experimental communications satellite in 2027 at the earliest, by Council reporting, 2028 per TASA's own page, a second by 2030, 4 industrialization satellites from 2029, total sovereign fleet by about 2030, 6 satellites. TASA's own Director General puts the minimum for uninterrupted coverage at 20 to 30. Taiwan's independence plan, at full delivery, ships less than a third of its own agency's floor. Set those 6 against the field from the sky count. 10,400 flying today. Hold that frame. And the calendar does not cooperate. The invasion capability window US commanders have repeatedly flagged is 2027. Taiwan's first sovereign communications satellite may launch that same year. 1. The plan and the threat are not on the same clock. The belief to bury that somewhere in Taipei a real plan B is sitting ready. What sits ready is single digits, foreign gateways, and a schedule the threat does not respect. There was another option, and proving it requires flying 700 miles south. In May 2021, the Philippine National Telecommunications Commission approved Starlink as a value-added service provider, operating as a wholly owned subsidiary. The exact structure Taiwan refused. The Philippines bought coverage and accepted the dependency. Taiwan kept sovereignty and accepted the gap. Both decisions are rational because the 2 islands are not playing the same game. Nobody's invasion timeline runs through Manila's ownership law, so correct the framing one last time. Taiwan did not fail to get Starlink. Taiwan declined to pay Starlink's price, and the price was placing critical infrastructure under one man's total control. The Philippines paid it. Taiwan is about to find out what refusing costs. Run the corrected model back through everything it touches. The cable layer breaks under flags of convenience. The orbital layer has one landlord, and the landlord's terms are total ownership. The standoff is domestic law against corporate doctrine, not foreign coercion. The owner carries a documented fifth of his company inside the adversary. The one wartime test on record ended with the owner declining a military's request, and the Pentagon's answer to that test, billions for guaranteed access, stops at the water's edge of its own alliances. Taiwan sits outside every one of those fixes at once. This is what the state-centric map of war can no longer see. Alliances move armies, but launch cadence built a private actor at strategic scale, and no treaty on Earth compels him. Every government now planning for conflict has quietly added a new column to its threat matrix, not what the enemy controls, but what nobody's government controls. For the first time in the history of war, whether an island of 23 million people stays online may be decided not in Washington, not in Beijing, and not in Taipei, but in the head of one man. You made it to the end, which means you think the way this channel thinks. Subscribe, and the next one finds you.